For the wicked, or take the path that sinners tread, or sit in the seat of scoffers. But their delight is in the law of the Lord, and on his law they meditate day and night. They are like trees planted by streams of water, which yield their fruit in its season, and their leaves do not wither. In all that they do, they prosper. The wicked are not so, but are like chaff that the wind drives away. Therefore the wicked will not stand in the judgment, nor sinners in the congregation of the righteous. For the Lord watches over the way of the righteous, but the way of the wicked will perish.
No good tree bears bad fruit, nor again does a bad tree bear good fruit, for each tree is known by its own fruit. Figs are not gathered from thorns, nor are grapes picked from a bramble bush. The good person out of the good treasure of the heart produces good, and the evil person out of the evil treasure produces evil. For it is not out of the abundance of the heart, for it is out of the abundance of the heart that the mouth speaks.
Thank you. Let's come to our prayers.
Morning. I turned on the television the other day. I think it was after a church meeting or deacon's meeting where I needed just to unwind for a while before going to bed. And there was a warning that came up straight away. This is on Prime Television. It said, "This programme contains strong language, violence and sexual conduct." That was a warning. I was thinking, well, that's not exactly, I wasn't looking for any of that particularly, but it got me thinking. Actually, I have to say I ploughed on all the same. I'm not sure if I should have done. And there was very little of that. It really should have just said, this programme contains a confusing plot line and some inane action. And that's actually what I was looking for at that time of night, so it all worked out. But this use of warnings, telling you what's coming up, preparing you for some of the stuff. Anyone who's followed Succession recently will get that. It says at the outset of all the programs on Succession, every episode, this program contains very strong language from the outset and throughout. I mean, that's exactly, that's like a barrage, isn't it? And I wanted us to think about that for a moment. I'm not going to ask for a confession. I'll make a confession about whether I watched all of Succession. Well, now I've said that, I will confess I did. But as we think about the passage we're in, the series we're in, which is about God's words and ours, and Jesus speaking in this passage today about our speech. And Jesus says, out of the abundance of the heart, the mouth speaks. It got me thinking, what kind of sign or warning would go before us if people carried those kind of warnings that programs do today? And if you reflect on your speech just over the last week, just think, what kind of warning might be put over you? Warning, this person knows how to clip your wings with words. I won't tell you who I was talking to this week. Warning, don't cross this person today or you'll get a mouthful. Warning, this person will have a moan about someone. They always do. Warning, this person will pick holes in you if you get anything wrong. Warning, be careful how you act around this person. They will talk about you behind your back. Warning, this person will smile and agree with you to your face. But they do that to everyone. Warning, this person will lie to you if it suits them. But less about Boris Johnson. So, we do things with words, don't we? We do things with words. And Jesus says that it shows what kind of people we are. Cuts the other way as well, though, doesn't it? Warning, this person will build you up and encourage you. Warning, this person will speak well of others because they always see good in others. Warning, this person will make you think about your life and the world when they talk to you. Warning, this person will be generous and gracious about you and others when they go on from that meeting with you. Warning, this person will tell the truth to you, even if it's hard. We do things with words. We get things done with words. And Jesus says it shows what sort of people we are. Just ponder for a moment. Think of the conversations you've had this week. What would be the warning? What would be the sign that went ahead of you if Prime were responsible for that warning? Because you see, the church is called to be a place of creative and generous speech. Because it makes a difference, because we do things with words. That's why there is so much in the Bible about speech. Let your speech always be gracious. Build one another up. Encourage each other. Each person should speak the truth to their neighbour. Do not gossip. Do not slander. The church is a place of good speech. Because we do things with words. We make and we break. And the church is meant to be a place of making. Let's pause, just think of how we use our words. And it's easy to cop out, you see, a bit like that programme of a confusing plot line. It's easy to cop out, no good to anyone. Warning, this person's got nothing to say. Almost worse to have that said about you, wouldn't it? This person will never say anything, good or bad. This person will never risk a kind word and will never speak an uncomfortable truth. You wouldn't want that either, would you? Jesus he gives us an option between good and bad, not sitting on the fence. He's calling us to speak well, to encourage, to build up, to speak the truth, to set the tone. And already at the outset we could just ponder, do we do it? Because we do things with words. And the answer to this observation isn't to stop speaking, isn't to try and do nothing, but is to speak well and do good things. So what do we do if we're going to start being people who speak well and not badly? And the Bible has some good advice on that. We've heard some of it already in this series that we've been doing. Set a guard over my mouth, O Lord. Keep a watch over the door of my lips. Let not my heart be drawn to what is evil. See that link between lips and heart? Again, this time the other way around. Start with my lips. Watch your tongue is basically the advice there. And asking God to be involved in that. It's a good place to start, but it's a bit of a battle, isn't it? If you start with that one every day, Lord, set a guard over my mouth, just the notion of a guard. It's a bit of a battle to make sure that you're not saying anything that you shouldn't say and that you are saying the stuff you should say. And who hasn't kicked themselves, even recently, over something they've said or something they haven't said? Do you know that? Do you ever get that feeling? If you're someone like me who talks a lot, you'll have this in a review almost every evening. You sit down. Claire does it out loud. She sits there, we'll be sat there in the evening, she'll go, ooh, and I said, just thinking of something I said. Shouldn't have said that. You kick yourself over things you've said, or you kick yourself sometimes over things you haven't said. Quick straw poll. Who's more likely to kick themselves over things they have said? Does that happen to people? Yeah, there's a fair bit of that. Oof, I wish I hadn't said that. How many of us are people who would kick themselves over things they haven't said? I wish I had said that. I'm a bit more like that, actually, a bit more reticent. So we know that feeling. It's a bit of a battle if it's to set a guard. Watch what I'm saying. James is properly despairing about the possibility of controlling the tongue. Remember the service that Wilma did on taming the tongue. He says this, for every species of beast and bird, reptile, sea creature can be tamed and has been tamed by the human species, but no one can tame the tongue, a restless evil, full of deadly poison. I mean, as you start the day, you may as well just give it up if you're listening to James. It can't be done. Put a guard on your tongue if you like, but here we're talking about an escape artist. It's going to be a tough job. And Jesus instead comes at it very differently, not offering advice about how to control yourself in the moment. It's not saying how to exert some self-control, because Jesus knows that in the moment it is too late. It's like when you go into the headmaster's office or the headmistress's office and they say, if you're here, it's too late. There are only consequences from here, and things should have been done in advance. And that's what Jesus is getting about when he talks about the tree and the fruit. He's saying something like, the tree already has the fruit in it. Fig trees produce figs. And there's no point in looking for oranges from a fig tree. That would be bananas. Thank you. Good trees, in a sense, have good fruit already in them. Bad trees have bad fruit within them. They produce what they've got. So if we're asking Jesus about how to speak well, the answer is really simple. Jesus just says, be a good person. How do I get to speak well? The answer's simple, be a good person. If you're a good person, you'll speak well. But the trouble is, it's a little bit like that joke about the person asking a local for directions to get somewhere. And the person says, oh, if I was trying to get there, I wouldn't start from here. What happens if you just don't feel like a good person? I'm not sure how encouraging it is. It was hard enough trying to control my tongue, but now you're telling me to be a different person. But that is what Jesus is saying. Get a good heart. Then you'll have a growing fund of goodness to speak out of, and a reducing deficit of nastiness to speak out of. Change who you are. It's a little bit like saying, for those of you who watched it yesterday, that the Champions League was won on the training field. And if you ask the manager, of course, that's where he'll tell you it was won. Not just on the pitch, but on the training field. It'd be like saying a dance championship is won in the practice, wherever dancers practice. What's it called? The studio or whatever. It's won there. You've got to put the work in. It's a bit like saying exams are passed, not in the exam room, but in your bedroom or up to the dining room table, wherever it is you do your revision. If by some chance I ran out on the Champions League final, like not just in my reveries and everything, but it really happened, I could only blow it, couldn't I, at that moment? If I ran out and was part of the final, I could only blow it. In that moment, it would be too late. If I was in a dance final competition, something I've never even fantasised about, I could only make a fool of myself. And also sort of register myself for physiotherapy or something afterwards. I could only do that sort of thing. And in actual fact, I did fail all of my CSEs, every single one of them, when I was 16. And the secret of such failure was to do no work at all before the exams. I turned up on the day. Actually, I put a fairly good shift in, I thought. But it didn't all happen. It didn't all come together in 45 minutes. And that's what Jesus is getting at with the tree image. It puts us in mind of Psalm 1, doesn't it? How you walk, where you sit. Happy are those who do not follow the advice of the wicked, who do not take the path of the sinners, who do not sit with the scoffers, but delight in the law of the Lord. Those people who have put the work in first. And Jesus' talk of the heart, is talk of training. It's part of the oldest wisdom in the scriptures and in the church, that your heart can be trained. I'm not talking cardio, but shaping the core of who you are. When you do exercise at present, it's all about core strength, isn't it? Do Pilates, so I'm told, and that sort of thing, and you get core strength. Scriptures talk exactly about that. A strong core from training the heart. It's not a kind of Walt Disney encouragement here. It's not follow your heart. We saw last week with the red heart there, when we wrote all those words that get into our heart. It's not just follow that heart. That's just going to get you in trouble if you haven't trained your heart first. Train your heart and then live out of it. And so what is the training? Well, that could be another sermon, so I promise we won't go into what is the training. But let's just take one example. If you take this from Scriptures, Paul says this in Romans 12. Love one another with mutual affection. Outdo one another in showing honour. Rejoice in hope. Be patient in suffering. Persevere in prayer. Contribute to the needs of the saints. Extend hospitality. That's heart training. Concentrate on the things you do. Do them differently. Bless those who persecute you. Bless and don't curse. Rejoice with those who rejoice. Weep with those who weep. Live in harmony with one another. Put some work in. Do these things. If you're a church member, if you come along to church, that's what you've signed up for. It's like joining a gym in that sense. And we forget it sometimes. Sometimes we forget it's like paying for the gym subscription and then not going. I've done that as well. And you end up just spending money, but you're not getting any of the benefit from it. Sometimes we're like that in church. We turn up and we forget that we've joined up for a task. And it's not just about the work we put in. It's also about, we get this in John's Gospel. Jesus says, I am the vine, remain in me and I in you, and you'll produce good fruit. There's an element to it where you're doing the cardio work, and you're also coming in prayer that God would fill that out, that Jesus would do the heavy lifting to make the change as well. And then we come to in Galatians 5 where we started today. If you're doing it, some of the time, if you're dwelling in Christ, Paul assures us that fruit will grow. The fruit of the Spirit, which is love, peace, patience, kindness, generosity, faithfulness, gentleness, and self-control. If you're putting the work in, if you're sitting with Christ, depending on Christ, you will see the fruit grow. And then we can go back to Jesus' passage, because if you're doing some of those things, and if you're doing them badly, you don't have to be doing them brilliantly. Anyone can tell you, just going along to the gym and doing a little bit of it, you're getting better than where you are now. If you're doing some of this stuff, then say what you want. Say whatever you've got to say. It will do good, and it will build others up. Because out of the abundance of the heart, the mouth speaks. Amen. Before we come to sing, let's just have a moment to pray. I'm going to leave a couple of moments of quiet in which we can make our own